guys, I am so glad to talk with you today, taking the last sip of tea as this is an early spring, isn't it? We've had such warm weather, at least in our part of the world. And so I'm already getting the tickles in my throat from a little seasonal allergies. Whatever's growing out here is something that is tickling me. Guys, I hope you've had a good week. We are talking about, as you know, on this show, a lot of different things. We talk about all sorts of things. We talk about sex and love and business and everything. Well, we're talking about authenticity right now. And we've talked about some of the things that stand in the way of it. We're going to be talking about more of those things today. And we're going to be talking about what it really is and how we can go about achieving it. This is not a light switch that any of us turn on. It takes years, but there's no time to start it like now and to tackle the elements that we must put in place now. One of my favorite quotes, I think it's Chinese, that says the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. And I feel very strongly about that. So no time like the present is my philosophy. Let's just go on and do it. Now, I'd like to do a prayer first to get us all on the same page. And then I'm going to start out with a couple of little stories to go into this. So here we go. All right. And certainly we are live and on the air today. And I hope that we're not too pixelated. Oh, hello, Lisa. I'm so glad to talk with you. For those of you that are listening on Blog Talk Radio, I also am being filmed on Facebook Live. We do both here, so you can have the video or the audio experience. And so on Facebook Live, people write me, and many of them are old friends. So I'm very glad that you're listening today. All right, let's do a prayer. Get us all centered, right? Okay, here we go. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are and all everything is in this world, thank you so much for our all being under the banner of wanting to know ourselves more, loving you more. We open ourselves to, good morning, Kat. We open ourselves to who we are now at our authentic, essential best. We ask that we now, hello Keisha too. We ask now that we open to how this can work in our lives as a first step, a second step, a third step. We appreciate it so much. And we are saying this prayer now in your name and in the name of the ascended masters and love-centered guides and friends. And we also are asking that you put us in the state of knowing nothing, for it is the you, our highest selves, through us and through all things, that have the answers. We ask to be in that energy, that we may recognize the answers for us, see our first, second, third steps that we take now, and go on and do it. Give us courage, and so it is. Amen. Don't know why I couldn't say that word today. Hope it gets better. my mouth. The cups of tea do help. So the story I wanted to tell you is about a dear friend of mine who is struggling with this very thing, authenticity. She is a client of mine as well. She's a fabulous human being, and I love her dearly. So something came up today, and it reminded me of a story that happened to me too, and how two people can do two different things. Now, keep in mind, I've been working all this for a long time, okay? This is a subject that has always interested me. I'm certainly saying to you, and I want to put it on the table now, that I am no authority about anything. I am sharing my living experiences with you. I have a certain talent for this. But don't think that life is not a continual learning experience for me too, for all of us. And I think it's too easy for us to say, oh, they're this or they're that, and put each other in categories. There are no categories. We're just all doing the best we can. We're all learning in the moment, hopefully, and we go on. And how exciting that we go on together on a show like this. Okay, it goes all around the world. I mean, that is just wonderful. We are live today. The guest call-in number, keep in mind, this is the call-in number to get on the air, is 347-850-1647. That's 347-850-1647. That'll get you right on the air to talk to me. However, if you just want to listen, the best way, I think, to do that is to get on my website, Martha Novak, NOVAK.com, under radio shows, and there are two buttons. One feeds you into the live show, Facebook, Blog Talk Radio or Facebook Live. So there you are. That is if you don't want to be on the air. Some people do, some people don't. Going to my story. So, this friend of mine is truly struggling with authenticity. She's lived her false self, her egoic self, her narcissism for her whole life. I think she got it from her parents, by the way. I think they had this too. You can inherit, the system of being false. And by the way, I know full well she's going to make it out of this, but this is just such a good example of the things that we work on here. I thought we better put it on the table. So she always likes to look at all the wonderful things she does, and she will not accept the things she does not like about herself. She is always telling me how remarkable life has become when it hasn't yet. This is a constant building up of herself instead of accepting the light and the dark of all of us, right? We're all light and dark. And you don't really have a choice of becoming light, fully light, which is what you're calling into a show like this to learn more about, until you also have the choice of taking a darker path, an egoic path. Don't you understand? It is the choice of that comes from the acceptance of the whole of what we are. We are everything. If we are the aspect of God known as us, we are the light and the dark, the good and the bad, the rich and the poor, and everything else. We are everything. In that, we have a choice. But the big thing that we find so hard in life is accepting our humanness, accepting our darkness. And sometimes we have a hard time, by the way, and there are just as many of us doing one as the other, accepting the good. Sometimes we only see the dark. That leads to depression, doesn't it? And all sorts of psychological problems. If we only see the good instead of the bad, we have a lot of anxiety because we're imposters. And we are always building ourselves up and creating our image, and that's where energy goes, and we don't have anything else. So I said to her, what about the little girl from Ohio? What about that little girl that was raised on a farm that doesn't really know anything and thinks she's kind of stupid? She's not, by the way. Absolutely, she's one of the smartest people I know. But this is what she left when she left that farm. Her whole life was about getting out of there and getting off that farm in Ohio. Coming to the big city, being something else, liking classical music. I'm not so sure she does. She should love story. She should love drama, things like that. Now, there's plenty of that in that. But you know what, and I make no bones about this, my background was musical theater. And there's nothing I like more than good musical theater music. Good musical theater music. Because I like to be told a little short story. It's like hearing a little short story. See, I like words. My love language is words. Now, I'm not saying anything except I have looked at her with suspicion because she's creating an image of being the sophisticate and creating an image of being very sophisticated, being very cityfied. Now, here's the thing. Because of her farm experience, she may prefer the city, but that she has crossed a line somewhere and say, no, I'm going to be this. I'm putting on this false self over who I really am. I'm going to prefer this, 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 and this because that's what the false self would prefer. And this is who I'm going to be now. And there's no integration of who she was. There's no acceptance of that. So she can come from there and be whatever and whoever she is now. That has been a continuation of that. And I was put in mind of a story that happened to me. And again, keep in mind, the only reason I know this is I went through something similar that she went through at one time, that she's going through. When I married my husband, within the first couple of years, we went to Venice. We were over visiting his family in Vienna anyway, in Austria. My husband's Austrian, for those of you that don't know. And we went then over to Venice just to have a little vacation for a week or so. Well, unbeknownst to me, my dear husband got us one of the best hotel rooms I've ever been in my life. It was fabulous. First of all, there was a bottle of champagne waiting in the hotel room when we got there, right? How nice is that? That had never happened to me before. And this was a hotel room that overlooked the Basilica and the canal, the Grand Canal, and oh my God, I couldn't believe it. When we walked out on the balcony, it was like, I couldn't believe it. And I remember saying to him, wait a minute, I'm just this little Buckhead Atlanta girl. Wait a minute. You know, I'm just this little provincial person. And here I am in this glorious hotel room overlooking this fabulous place. Now, what I want you to know about these two different experiences, and again, please do not think I'm holding myself above anybody. I am not. I am saying I was that person, and there's a different way of doing it. That is as clear as I can make it right now. I've never not been a little provincial nobody. So what? Aren't we all? And then don't we have a lot of life experiences that teach us and make us other things in addition to that? But it's not in denial of that. Why not be that? I'm going to tell you from my own experience, it's a great relief when you stop trying so hard to impress people and you're just yourself. And of course, that trying so hard to impress people comes from the fact that you don't think you're very impressive. I mean, it just does. And the fact is, we all are. We're all here for a reason. We all need to just be ourselves and go on and give that to the world in whatever aspect and tendencies and interests we have. It is the very thing that she's avoiding that's going to give her her life. When she puts her arms around the little girl from Ohio, that little farm girl that she judges so harshly, that kid is going to give her everything. Don't you understand? Because it will drop the pretense. She will be that and then have all the wonderful experiences that she's learned from that and through all of her experiences, like going to Venice, you see. We can't deny the parts of ourselves. We're light and dark. We're everything. Why not be that? Why be so afraid of anything we are? Why not just accept We're that. Sure. I have lots of people coming in and they say, I'm so afraid I'm nothing. And it's like, well, why not be nothing? What's wrong with that? You're not just nothing, by the way. You're a lot more than nothing. But part of us believes we're nothing. So why fight it? Don't you understand? It's this incredible conflict we have inside of us that is the problem. Why not resolve it? Why not be it all? And then have some very clear choices out of that. You see? Okay. Again, I'm going to say this one more time. She might have a preference because she lived on a farm for living in the city now. Isn't that wonderful? A preference? By the way, I've lived in the city all my life. My preference is being out in the country. Okay? My preference is not a small town. My preference is kind of a resort town. That's my preference. That's where I grew up in the summer times, and that's where I have some very fond memories, so I enjoy being back there, you see. So you can have a preference. I'm not ever going to take that away from you. By all means, enjoy your preferences. But that you're having a reaction and denying anything in your life, now that's the problem. That you have a reaction when anybody gets near, exposing you, instead of accepting, well, you can't be exposed, you accept it all. You see? That's the important thing. That's important for our growth, that we're all right with that. And I see we have got a call already, so now I'm going to go back to, I've got lots of information, you all. Hang on, strap yourself in. But let's go to our caller, shall we? And let me see if I can bring them on. Hello, this is a 607 Exchange. To whom am I speaking?
My name's Nicole from New York.
Hello, Nicole from New York. I'm Martha Novak from, right now, Atlanta. How are you?
Okay.
Okay. Darling, what would you like to comment on or ask today?
Well, is this a psychic show?
It is not. It is a consciousness show, which is different. But we do try to help with tuning in to you, if that will help. But, I am not a psychic. I am a teacher. So let's talk about what's on your mind right now. And let's see if we can't help, shall we? As long as we've got you on the phone. Shall we go there?
Well, I'm wondering what's up for me for the next 3 months. I want to be here at least until May, but I think I'll have to leave.
This is are you in Manhattan?
No, New York.
You're in New York. What part of New York are you in?
Binghamton?
Okay. Nicole, babe, there's something that essentially needs to be fixed in you, and it has nothing to do with where you are. You've been looking for outer results when there is something that's entirely fixable but needs to be addressed on the inside of you. This isn't about, it's about really who you are. It's about who are you past what you've always presented, because I'm telling you that is getting old and you're not able to use that as well as you used to. This false self that you were. It's odd that you should call in today because we're talking about this very thing. But I understand there's pressure for you to leave your current location. I feel that pressure, whether it's financial or something else. However, wherever you go and wherever that is, you're going to have to address the same problem you've got there. And that is, who am I? Beyond these false ideas that I have of myself, and there's some false ideas that you have of yourself, A lot of them, by the way, came from your dad. Not that he was a good or bad person. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you've inherited some ideas about life that are not serving you now, and you've got to work on correcting those. So there is simply a self to find that you're on your way to find either there or somewhere else. What is happening to you, though, is you get easily distracted. You'd rather not find it on the inside. You'd rather find it on the outside. That's not going to happen. It has nothing to do with who's outside, the people and what they're going to bring you or anything else. This is all about you on the inside. So what I'm urging you to do is stay there or not, leave and find someplace else or not. But your growth is what this is all about, not a place and not a person. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You will serve yourself really well if you don't forget this is about your growth. You will serve yourself very well, and you've got to do this, or it's going to be the same thing over and over and over again. And this is getting old and tired, and sometimes, honestly, and I'm going to use this word carefully, dangerous. Because if you run out of money, if you run out of things, if you are absolutely at the bottom, health-wise or anything else, sweetheart, you can't do what you need to do. So we've got to build you back, and then we've got to do some work on the self. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, I know you didn't like to hear that, but that's what it's about. And the difference in a show like this is we don't tell you necessarily what you want to hear, but we do try to tell you the truth from my viewpoint and what I'm getting. Okay?
All right.
All right, sweetie. Good luck with this. Your health is very important here. You're going to need to build yourself back a little bit before you start into this inner work, but you got to do that. That's what you're being called to do. Okay? So,
All right.
madam, all right, let me know how you are, Nicole. I always remember who calls in. All right, don't ask me why. I always remember that. I can't remember what I had for dinner last night, but I can remember the people that call in. So please call in again and let me know how you're doing. All right?
All right.
All right, darling. Take care now.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, hello, Keisha. Hello, Mona. Oh, I'm so glad all of you all are here today. When someone like Nicole calls in, I do hope that all of us will pray for each other. I mean, this is such a lovely community that we have here, and we've all been where she has been. I know I have, and, maybe not exactly. Maybe we, there are some things that are unique to us, but I think that when we have hit bottom or we're pretty near it, we sure do value the healing that comes from that when it does trigger and come along. So I certainly wish that for Nicole, and if you all will keep her in your prayers, that would be very nice indeed. Okay, so we're at 347-850-1647. I hope you all can hear the difference in what I do and a psychic read. It's fine. I mean, I'm in there, with the descriptive words as an intuitive, and I couldn't pick up things if I wasn't. But a psychic is just trying to pick things up. And I am not trying to just pick things up. I am actually trying to get you somewhere. There's a difference here. And I'm trying to teach. And I'm trying to say, next step, and here's the next step. And give you some information that way. Okay, Mona is writing me. The answer, Mona, is I don't feel that right now. She was asking me a question. I don't necessarily feel that this year. If so, it'll be at the end. But it doesn't feel like we're quite ready for that yet. He's not. All right, let's move on, okay? And let's talk about authenticity. It's interesting, all the things that are out there written about authenticity, because none of them are very good. They tell you what authenticity is not. Isn't that interesting? Instead of what it is. Authenticity is certainly, from my perspective, being your true self, being really true to the essence of who you are. While that sounds pretty easy, I think it's one of the hardest things in the world to do. There are so many elements that get us off the beam. One of the elements is that we're not straight with reality. When we are little kids, I want you to realize before you're 18 months old, you know what's interesting? That's before the ego and the egoic child's mind has developed. The reason it develops around that age is because enough bad things, perceived, by the way, bad things have happened, uncomfortable things that happen, that we develop the ego and the ego child's mind to protect us. It will scan the future now for light things that hurt us in the past, right? But it takes us right out of the moment, this moment of now. It's supposed to. That's fine. It helps us in our development, because we are we're kids. We're not enlightened. Our job is to make sense of our world and survive. And so the ego child's mind helps you make sense of your world. It gives you issues. You say, well, it isn't that my father is a workaholic. It is that I am not interesting enough to keep his interest, not smart enough, not whatever enough, you see. Sometimes not, I'm not a good enough writer. I'm not seductive enough. I'm not whatever the child's mind perceives. And there are a lot of other influences that will perceive. We then say this is our understanding with the undeveloped mind, the undeveloped whole. Now that undeveloped mind, that undeveloped whole is very important. Why? Because if you didn't have that, it would never become developed in consciousness work. We would never get emotionally mature, right? We would never grow up. We would never cross that line into the way things really should be, right? Okay. Now, our only problem is that we often live inauthentically. We stay that. Why do we do that? Well, in my opinion, we do that because we have crossed that threshold from I do this to I am this. When we have crossed that boundary, we are not keen to get rid of these issues that we have, because we say, who are we if not this? I'm here to tell you, doing the work that I do, that is absolutely just propaganda from the ego child's mind, because you are the energy of God as you. You're the aspect of God known as you, just like a prism refracts light in a million different aspects all around. You're one of those aspects. I'll also say I've never met anybody who wasn't here for a reason, but our reasons vary differently. Oh man, there's so many different reasons. But one of the really big reasons is that we continue to learn and grow, and that we integrate the whole and all that kind of thing. A lot to do here, but it's available to us only if we have an open mind, if we keep going, if we study consciousness, which is going to contain everything that we're talking about right now, that I'm going to put on the table. The problem is we have distorted reality. We have all sorts of cognitive distortions. I've done lots of radio shows on those, so go back and find some of those radio shows on Blog Talk Radio, Facebook Live, and YouTube. They're all mounted to YouTube, on cognitive distortions. we distort ourselves, our God, the world, our families, our loved ones, intimates, friends, how we see things. We've distorted it in all sorts of ways instead of realizing what consciousness gives us, which is everything's an aspect of God. Everything is an aspect of God. The thing that confuses us about God, though, is that God makes its presence known to us according to our understanding. So if everything in the world is God, people say, well, how can bad things happen to good people? Because, darlings, it's our understanding that something's bad. In truth, there's just learning, there's just growing, there's just opportunities within opportunities. And often there is great joy and grief. Often our abundance is finally gotten to when we accept our poverty. Our smarts appear when we accept the whole. And part of the whole is that we're not so smart, you see. That's an esoteric journey. Everything is, revealed in other things. But to find it, we have to have an open mind, don't we? And sometimes we don't. Now, we have learned in this egoic child's mind that the moment of now, again, everything was now before your 18-month-old time period when the ego and the ego child's mind developed. Before that, all time is now. And if something hurt you or disquieted you or made you uncomfortable or you felt an emotion that was something like anxiety and you didn't know what it was, the mind says, because all time is now, it's going to last forever. This is what freaks us out. Oh my God, it's going to last forever. Nothing lasts forever, but we don't know it then. And that's the whole reason, that panic, for the ego child's mind to come along and the ego to come along and say, let's project to the future so that doesn't happen again. If we stay in that mind, we are distanced from reality because we have learned that reality hurts. Those moments hurt. Again, it's not only, here's reality, but this is going to last forever. That's what we do with it, you see? I mean, it's a perfectly legitimate reason that we're talking about what we're talking about right now. I'm not taking that away from you. I'm saying that this is not the time in your life to continue to live from the survival place. It's time to do something else now. Deepen in consciousness, be something more. For all of us. So one of the I can never know. It doesn't matter what city I'm in, and I do these shows from various places. Sometimes it's just spotty, no matter where you are. All right, so one of the first things we must learn in our consciousness work is that reality is a good thing, not a bad thing. When reality is a bad thing and when we're sure it's a bad thing and our child's mind are in charge, one of the things we do is we'll create fantasy. We'll have a fantasy us, a fantasy mother, father, a fantasy family, a fantasy God, a fantasy everything. It has to be nicer. We have to feel better about it because if we think it's reality, if reality is that bad, we have to create an alternate reality. So in my work with people, I often find that I've got to address this fantasy world that they've created because they are trying to distance themselves from reality because they think reality is terrible. Guys, you're not going to be able to manifest well. You're not going to be able to reach deeper levels of consciousness. You certainly can't go into those enlightened states unless you're straight with reality, unless it's fantasy, right? You've got to now buckle down and realize that reality is actually better than fantasy. But you're going to have to get there first and then make it better. You understand? We do create our worlds, guys. And if you've created a world you don't like very much, well, let's dress it up now. Let's accept it in reality and do something about it in reality. That's what I mean by dressing it up. Not dressing it up in fantasy. Fantasy is its own reward. It's never going to bring you anything. It's not the same as being a visionary or having a dream for something. Those are states of being that are very human and will bring you something. You can create out of those states. You can't create out of fantasy. You go to fantasy because it makes you feel better about a lousy, crappy reality, you see? And that's not where you need to go to make all this work, and certainly not to be authentic. Authenticity, true authenticity, comes out of true reality. Yeah, just the way it is. So, let's talk about some of the elements that you need for authenticity. I've got so much to say on this. I can't imagine that we're going to finish in the next hour, but if not, we'll go next week as well. To be authentic, you have to have self-understanding. I'm not talking about the cursory self-understanding. Here's the real problem with all of this. We're not aware of what we're not aware of. We think we're aware of everything. The more you do this consciousness work, the more you follow the gyre and peel back the layers, the more you realize, you know what? You don't understand anything. Why isn't that all right? See, the answer to this in consciousness is, why isn't that all right? And the answer is always, well, it is. You've heard me say this several times. I say this for anybody new, that when I'm doing this work with people, and we have a private practice, when I'm doing this work with people, we get them to a certain point, and they know all this, right? They're just still doing the old. And I'll say, and, why isn't that all right? And they'll sit there, and they'll sit there, and they'll sit there, and they finally say to me, I can't think of any reason why it isn't all right but an excuse. And I do want to put on the table that everything is an excuse, because everything is all right. And those excuses come out of our cognitive distortions. And some of the things we're going to talk about here. Our lack of awareness about how it all works. Our lack of awareness about how we work, what we are motivated by, because we're motivated by the light and the dark, don't you understand? And what you do in consciousness work is you then challenge that you're motivated by the dark. You're challenging these cognitive distortions, challenging these things to say, are they true or are they not true? And most of them are lies or just partial truths. There's a whole nother way of looking at things in a different context. We psychologically, and there isn't one person that escaped this, make good things bad and bad things good in our psychological makeup. We convolute things all over the place to keep doing it. But we're going to have to challenge those things. And they're just blooming plain. I don't know how to say it any other way. There are things that are locking you up that you don't know about yourself. And you're not going to find them without help, because the ego child's mind doesn't want you to. It just wants you alive. It doesn't care whether you're happy. You care whether you're happy. Your highest self is calling you to that. Not, though, at the exclusion and the denial of the egoic child's mind. It must be included. Just like that story I told you about my darling friend who doesn't want to accept the little girl, farm girl from Ohio. She must be accepted. She must be included. It's about inclusion, not exclusion, you see? That's what gets us in trouble. The non-acceptance of our humanness, of who we are, of where we came from, of what our mothers and fathers were like, of what we like and don't like, of what we've done and haven't done, the sins of omission and commission. Darlings, everybody's done all of this. It's time to, yes, forgive ourselves, but live differently in the forgiving of ourselves. It's the ultimate forgiveness, I think. So the first thing I want to put on the table about all this is there is a great deal of self-understanding that you all are going to have to go in search of. Don't just look for a pacifier. Guys, I do what I do in a constant state of meditation. I've been meditating for many, many years, and I've done all sorts of methods about how to do that. I rarely sit still and meditate anymore because I try to get to this place where I'm a channel or I'm quiet. And information, if I'm supposed to know it, comes. But don't use some of your spiritual practices, and I'm picking on meditation right now just because it's the first thing that comes to mind, but you can do this in all sorts of ways. Meditation is not a drug to help you not deal with life, to not look at the truth, to not see your true motivations and see the light and the dark mixed together. Meditation is not supposed to help you feel better about yourself. If it is doing that, you're blocking a lot of information that needs to come through to make your life better, because that you block it so you'll feel better in the moment about yourself is one thing. Great, I'm glad you feel better in the moment. But giving you a whole happy life, it is not. And many times we seek to feel good by doing certain things or not doing certain things in the moment. And because we're not facing the truth about what it's really doing, we're just running to the next thing, right? Or running to deny the next thing. We don't have a happy life overall because we're supposed to be getting straight with all of this. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So there's a great deal of self-understanding that must be sought. That must be sought. The interesting thing is we live in a fabulous world. There are all sorts of books on this. There are all sorts of meditation practices. Heck, guys, my shows are free. What else can I do for you, right? My sessions are not free, but my books are practically nothing. You can buy them on my website, by the way. We've tried to keep the costs very low. My CDs, Guys, we're trying to get this information to you. We're trying to challenge the old system. There's a great deal of healing if you will allow the old system to be challenged. If we can shake you up in these radio shows, if we can agitate those cells, well, one of the ways we heal is to go from chaos to new order. And we always try to give you little steps to take that are practical and implementable that we hope you'll take. Some of them will be right for you, some of them won't, but hopefully something will be right for somebody. Okay. So self-understanding is such a big part of authenticity. Another thing, and I'm not taking these in any particular order, another thing is presence. Now, what do I mean by that? For many years, as a business coach, people come up to me once they're interested in my program, and they'll say, if I go through your program, will I have presence? And by the way, I've done a CD set that's called the IT series. And man, do we talk about this. If you want to know how to have it, it's called the IT series because, as you know, I came from the theater and it was real and film, and it was real interesting because agents who have always been friends of mine have always said, hey, thank you, Barbara. I'm so glad. Oh, aren't you sweet to say what you did? And I'm so glad that you're tuned in today. Barbara is one of my favorite people, and we've been friends for years. Okay, so the IT series that I'm telling you about that is on the website that you can buy Agents for years have said, Martha, send me someone with that. Send me someone with it. And I'd tease them and I'd say, what is it? And they wouldn't be able to tell me. Nobody was able to tell me unless they do consciousness work. But they would always say, I don't know, but I will recognize it when it walks in the door. Now, let me tell you what it is. It is an energetic quality. It is being present with every single thing, every cell in your body in this moment. That's it. That's it. And it's one of the base lines of authenticity. Are you not here or what? I've noticed for years when I was coaching acting that some people would be doing a scene with somebody else, they had their lines memorized, they would be acting, they didn't even see the other person. You can see when somebody's so worried about themselves energetically that they don't move the energy in a normal manner with people. So presence is being present right here, right now, no matter what you're doing, with every single solid cell of your body. And as I'm talking to you today, I hope you can tell that my toes are talking to you. My ear lobes are talking to you. Everything is here in this experience of us. It isn't just my brain that's talking to you. I've always laughed, and I talked to my class about this yesterday, that I'm not smart enough to do this work. I've got to allow myself to be used by my highest self that can give you this information. Presence, being entirely present. And if you all want an exercise that might help you with this, one of a really good exercise that I use with actors for years is to take a ball, just like a tennis ball. I particularly like those little high bounce balls that, have a lot of either nubbiness. I have some that are nubby, and I have some that have angles on them, so they bounce all sorts of which way. And I'll say, go outside, or you can play this with someone, or you can play this by yourself. I think it's actually easier to play with someone, and have them throw it to you, not to hit you, of course, but, throw it in your general direction, and you run for it. You can't predict where it's coming from, right? And then give your speech, give a talk, introduce yourself in that energy of being spontaneous, because you can't catch that ball if you are not in your body. And the exercise itself brings your energy level up, so all the cells are turned on. That is the sacred space for you. You look a little silly, of course. We all do when we play an exercise like that. But in terms of turning your cells on, turning yourself on and staying in your body instead of being outside looking at you, which we often do when we're self-conscious, it's a good exercise to do. It's the start of presence. Okay, so that's presence. Being present in this moment entirely. And it's certainly something that must be there if we're talking about consciousness. We're talking about you being conscious. Well, you better be conscious on every level of your being, even the cellular one, right? So presence is a part of it. Consciousness is knowing more today than you know tomorrow. It is being here. Sorry, I said that wrong, didn't it? Consciousness is knowing more tomorrow than you know today, because you're here completely, and you'll be there completely, and you'll be, I don't know where. I think I need more tea. All right, let's listen to what you're saying, Martha. That's a demonstration of not being conscious, I guess. Another thing that we have talked about in these classes, in these radio shows, and certainly in my classes, is what are your values? And I always recommend, please get on the internet and just look at some values. There are long lists of values. If you interpersonal values, a bunch of lists come up. Find a good long one that has a lot of words on it. And I strongly recommend that you just don't go, oh, yes, I have that, I have that, I have that. And this is a very spiritual exercise. I think that you ought to choose 3. Now, here's the rub. Choose 3 that you already are, that you are 100% of the time. Don't choose 3 that you want to be. And as a matter of fact, my friend from Ohio all chose things that she wanted to be. Nothing that she lives right now. She didn't like that person because that person is a little girl from Ohio that she has doubts about. You see? I need for you to choose 3 values that you absolutely are every time. And then I want you to watch your life, and I want you to notice your unhappiness. Because when unhappiness happens, you have betrayed 1 or 2 or 3 of those values. And you're going to catch yourself and you're going, oh my God, I didn't take that value into that system. I was doing this instead. It's a very clear way to see what you're doing and some of your cognitive distortions. It's one of the best exercises I know. When you have mastered 3 of them, really mastered 3 of them, and this isn't, again, about what you become. I want you to be 95% already, yes, this is me. Okay? Then add 2 more. And be that, and watch that. Then adds more, then adds more, then adds more. Ultimately, your higher self is all these wonderful values to more or less extents. But you've got to start somewhere, knowing yourself. And this becomes what you hang on to in very difficult situations. This is what becomes so real for you as an inner, that you can go into hard talks or conversations where you have to work this something out with someone, and your values are present there. Okay? Now, there are a lot of these values that are on the list that you need to actually rethink. For example, I'll choose, this wasn't one of mine, by the way, you probably guessed by now. Somebody might choose kindness, okay? Kindness as their value. Does that mean being stupid? Does that mean allowing yourself to be taken advantage of? No, if you're going to choose a kindness, I think another really good one to live by is discernment. So that you see exactly how people are, that you're kind. Yes, that's basically who you are. But gosh, I try to be kind here, but I'm trying to tell you the truth at the same time. Why do those things in the child's mind not coexist? Because they really do, don't they? So think these things through. You have to think a little bit out of the box for these things. You see? Don't accept the face value of these things. I'm going to be kind. Now, I had a woman that came in, and when I challenged her to do this exercise, she said, oh, love, love. Immediately she said, love. And I started doing my work on her, right? And in a couple of weeks, she came in and she said, I've changed my value because I don't even know what love is. Because her love presentments were all egoic, right? She always had them adulterated with trying to get what she wanted and manipulations, trying to do that. If you're going to choose love, you better know what it is. So be discerning in your choices. Make sure you know what you're talking about and not just giving lip service to this exercise. It's very powerful. So what happens if you choose 3 and you walk into, as one of my clients did, a very difficult family situation where somebody has died and everybody's got a different opinion about what they should do with the other parent, and it's dissension city. You hold on to who you are, just these 3 words, and you try to be in that. You see? It really serves you well. Now, it's not just a question of your knowing what your values are. It's a question of living them. It's a question of bringing them to every situation. It's a question of beingness. It's a question of your outer self, what you do, matching the inner self, these values, and having all of that work together. We are often conflicted because the outer doesn't match the inner, right? You're going to hear me talk about that a lot. The outer must match the inner. Yesterday, I challenged one of my classes for, let's talk about your public face and your private face. If you were to make a list of the adjectives that described your public face, what would they be? Here's another exercise for you to do when you're off the air. And if you were going to make a list of adjectives for your private face, what would they be? And my point is, they should match. Yep. They should match. So, when we talked yesterday about the public face and the private face, on one person's list, there was the public face was very confident. The private face sometimes self-doubted. Now, my point here was, how do you make that match? I'm saying everything should match. And you've got confidence and you've got self-doubt. How do you make that match? By accepting that they're both you. Do you understand that? By accepting that you're all of this. That's how to make it match. And that you have a choice now in each situation. Guys, do you think when I'm teaching something brand new, when new information is coming to me from God from a whole different area, something I've never thought of, just a thing that God tells me you must go in this direction and learn all this, you don't think I self-doubt? Of course I do. I wouldn't be human if I didn't. I self-doubt, and the self-doubt is being open to more learning. I don't know what I'm doing here. So you're the open system and more comes in. But if you self-doubt as a self-attack, that's where the problem comes, because then you close the system and there's no learning to be had. You're just that bad little girl from Ohio. Don't you understand? Metaphorically speaking, of course. Don't close the system. So what? We don't know everything all the time. Why isn't that all right? The answer is it is. Unless you're busy criticizing yourself and attacking yourself. Please don't do that. Part of authenticity is certainly confidence, but it is also not having any when you doubt. It's being, if you will, authenticity is just being real. Whatever it is, you're just real. You're just real. We think being authentic means that people are going to see all the way to our souls. And, well, if you open that much, then maybe you will let somebody do that. But just showing yourself as who you are, being real in the moment, it's really important. I certainly hope that my darling Michael loves me as a smart, talented person. But let me tell you, he also sees me as something else. I practically set the house on fire yesterday. I certainly didn't do it intentionally. I was making some chicken and rice, right? And oh, hello, Francisco. I'm so glad that you're watching. Thank you. So last night, I turned on some rice to boil. And a neighbor asked us to come on over, whom we haven't seen in a long time, so we ran across the street. Now, I remember standing at the stove saying I should turn this off. And then I thought, well, I got to have dinner ready when we come back, so I don't think I'll turn it off until we're ready to walk out the door. A few other things happened that were distracting, and I walked out the door thinking I turned it off. So when we came back, the house was filled with smoke. Very stupid thing to do, guys. One stupid thing, it doesn't mean my life is stupid. There's a difference here in what we say to ourselves. That was a very stupid act. It was a very unconscious one. I should have double-checked to make sure that I did. My husband even asked me, you did turn the rice off, right? Oh, sure, I've turned the rice off. Didn't think past that, okay? And I want to tell you, we came in, the house filled with smoke. It still smells smoky, but everything was all right, thank God. And my precious husband said only one thing, and I went, well, we've all done things like that from time to time, and that's sweet. And it's true. We all have. Guys, he sees that part of me that can do something like that too, because we all are. You just can't live a life and certainly be in relationship with someone without being ourselves and being real here. It happens. The tragedy comes when we self-attack and make a pronouncement on our whole lives. Now, that's a good example. I did a very dumb thing yesterday, and I burned up the rice. Okay. Caused a lot of smoke in the house. Okay, thank God, no fire. I didn't say that I am always doing things like that. Always, never. Bad words for you. Okay? I didn't say I always do things like that, because I don't. This was a one-time thing that I did. Am I capable of doing other things like that? Sure. If I don't pay attention, pay attention. Okay? But don't say you're bad from something like that. You just did a stupid bad thing. Here's mine. Be real. Doesn't mean being perfect. Doesn't mean anybody's going to be perfect. Be real. Okay. You don't have any convictions, and you're going to need them. You're going to have some once you become real. I remember a time in my life as a youngster wondering what I believed, because I believed what everybody else believed. I wanted to go along. I wanted to belong, right? But I remember thinking, well, this just isn't right. I should know what I believe. But I didn't realize that nobody knows what they believe until they become more real. It's the key to your having beliefs and convictions of your own, a belief system of your own, who you know yourself to be. So don't put the horse before the cart, seeking conviction before you found out who you are. Because a lot of organizations, any kind of organization, is filled with people that use it as a platform for their emotions. Could be anger, could be something else. Platform for emotions, because if they have their fists in the air, they don't have to see how they really feel. It's all about knowing ourselves, isn't it? We've got to find out how we really feel and peel back the layers. If God is all you are, then what are you worried about? But you got to take a chance on it. You see? You have to take a chance on that kind of lovingness that is all you are, past the illusions that you've done. I think that authentic people, another characteristic, is they make people feel comfortable. Now, that's important, because I am not always saying things that people want to hear. I'm sorry about that, Nicole. But I'm not always saying things that people want to hear. But I hope that you know that I am trying to do it in love. My intentions are good. I think it's extremely important that authentic people, I want you to know that when you feel about somebody that they are not quite what they seem when you're not quite comfortable with them, one of two things are happening. They're either genuinely inauthentic, there's something going on there that you should investigate, or if you trust that person, you may match them. It's going to reveal itself that this is not a good match, that who everybody is. But that's an important thing to see that I brought this in because I am that, and I need to work on it. Need to do something to get beyond these things. Need to resolve some issues in me. We can't hide. In this world, too, have you ever seen more stuff on everybody that's out there? We just need to be who we are, finally and completely. I think that society is pretty forgiving if we are. It's pretty harsh if we're not, if we lie. I think that when you are authentic, you are certainly more relaxed in the world. You just, you've made mistakes, you've done things, said things, been things that you're not proud of. All of us are like that. But the other side of it is what we're doing right now, that we've learned from it, you know? I don't think I've ever met anyone who is very truly authentic, who is got the imposter syndrome. You're not misrepresenting yourself. You're just being who you are. And that's important. So there is a relaxed quality that comes with that. I think that authentic people also are very contributory, but not at the expense of self. Now you'll notice I'm not saying self-sacrificial, I'm saying contributory. There is a real difference. I think self-sacrifice, in many cases, is coming from the egoic child's mind and not the highest self. I think true contribution really does come from the highest self. Now, I'm not saying this is 100% because there are these people that will, give their lives for a higher purpose. That's certainly coming from the highest self. But I think, generally speaking, that when you hear people talking about self-sacrifice, it's coming from the egoic child's mind. And true contribution, real contribution, to make people's lives better comes from the highest self. I've said all along that you know the ego experience, because the ego experience has no formula. It is all about me, at the expense of you. Or it's all about you, at the expense of me, which still is all about me because I've just made myself a victim. Still all about me, right? That's the ego experience. Very self-indulgent and very self-absorbed. The highest self, this mind that is the purer experience of the love of God, has a formula, which is me and you together creating an experience to agree or to disagree. But it's an agreement that we will agree or that we will disagree. I have been enjoying a women's group that I've just joined. And it is so fun to, we saw a movie together the other day, and I highly recommend the movie. I thought it was just great. But we all saw Jojo Rabbit, was the name of the movie, differently. Certainly I had my opinion as a writer and as a coach and everything. Someone else in the group was Dutch, and her family was over there during the Second World War and had a very Anne Frank experience, and she saw it quite differently. She didn't try to convince me to feel differently about it. I didn't try to convince her. All the other people had their own opinions. It was really quite fascinating. Just listen to each other. Isn't that nice? Another very important thing that one must have when you're doing this authentic work, trying to be authentic, is an awareness of how you're feeling. A lot of people avoid how they're feeling, right? There is something called the avoidance personality disorder, and that is when you avoid doing what you think you are not going to do well. I think there's some avoidance about emotion, If we don't know how to work through problems, we'll avoid having it. But emotion is a third of your learning experience. You are a reasoner, you are a feeler, and another part of your learning experience is how you do physically, all right? How you commit to action physically. Cutting off your emotions, not knowing how you feel, not wanting to know how you're feeling, not expressing how you're feeling in a good way, in a healthy way, and not learning how to work through whatever problems are on the table with your emotions, is to deny a third of your learning experience. It's not enough to feel the emotion. You need to know how to express them. And you need to know how to work through emotional problems. We are not born knowing this. Some of our families demonstrate some aspect of this. They can't demonstrate it fully to us. You know why? They're not us. And you can't be told by somebody else who you are. You've got to find that out for yourself. That's spiritual journey. That's why no parents recognize who we are. They can't. We're supposed to find that out. That's our journey, right? No matter what kind of family we came from. So emotion is a big part of this, and most people are afraid of emotion. They're afraid of feeling something themselves. They're afraid of you making them feel. You're going to have to get straight with that. Help is all around. The interesting thing, I think, about emotion is it's a signpost. When you go out and you see a stop sign, that doesn't immediately cause you to panic, does it? A yield sign, a street sign that says a name. No, it's information. Your emotions are the same thing. So you're in a situation and emotion triggers. All it is a sign to go and look somewhere and get straight with this. That's all it is. It is a sign for you to go and look somewhere. And it tends to go away when you've looked and you've resolved whatever it is. But you've got to learn to work with this. Now, the ego child's mind doesn't particularly want you to do that because it was hurt. It's the little kid saying, don't go there, avoid this. That's what the ego child's mind does. It says, no, don't go there. Avoid this. Or drown in it, one or the other, but it usually is telling you to do something else. Guys, you're going to have to get straight with this once and for all. I'm telling you the truth. If you're going to be more conscious, if you're going to be more authentic, you're going to have to look at this. And you know what? Here's the truth. You're never going to stop. This isn't a one-time shot. This isn't, you'll do this year and never look at it again. You're going to be doing this the rest of your life. You're going to be doing all this work the rest of your life. How authentic can we be? And by the way, one of the big reasons you want authenticity is that's where your potential lies. If you're not authentic, you can't fully give out of that potential and fully be fulfilled in that. So it's a big reason for you to want to do this work. Out of this kind of awareness of self, of knowing yourself really well, comes really good decisions. When we just make decisions out of our brains, when you make a decision out of an impulse or a feeling and don't consider other aspects of yourself, when you make a decision that is against your value systems, you can have all sorts of triggers that are telling you, wake up, look at this, this was not right for you, this was not good for you. We get scared. We say, oh my God, my body, I don't know what is happening, I don't feel good, it's going to last forever. I don't know, lasting forever thing again. And it's just trying to give us information. You know, I know this is a silly analogy, but it's an analogy I keep going back to, and I think it's very valid. When you look in the mirror to check yourself, and your hair is doing an interpretive dance, which, by the way, mine is doing today, you fix your hair. You don't stand there and yell at the mirror or yell at your hair or yell that you're such an ugly person. You just fix your hair. But here are these things that are on the table that you must do for a happy and fulfilled life, and you're resisting. You don't want to do it. In many cases. Many of you do, of course. That's why you're listening to a show like this that's challenging you. But many people don't. They'll yell at the mirror. Why? There's another way to get through it all. You learn to make better decisions when you consider the whole self. Here's the rub. To consider the whole self, you can't deny any of that self, like this little farm girl from Ohio. You can't deny her. You have to accept all of it. All of it. And it makes you smarter. There's your smarts. You've got to take your whole life into consideration. Everything in your life, undenied, if you brought it to the moment of decision, would help you make a very good decision. But instead, we make the decisions out of impulse or out of our issues, out of our cognitive distortions, out of our fantasies, which really get us in trouble, right? Fantasy is not reality and never will be, and you're going to get it hurt worse with fantasy, because when reality comes smacking up against it, and it always does, it'll devastate you. And then what most people do is quickly go in and isolate and withdraw and start building the fantasy again so they can get out there again. And they're going to get hurt again. It's a hell of a way to live when you can do something else. We have 10 more minutes, and I wanted to go somewhere, but I tell you what, let me keep going with a few of these things, and then I think we will go into our some articles that I found next week on this very subject, because I think they're very good articles. This is just today what a general opening of the subject of authenticity. You know, you can have inherited inauthenticity. If your mother and father, let's say, were narcissists, or and you remember, narcissists don't always look like the exhibitionist narcissists. There can be narcissists called toxic, not toxic, but they can be that too. Closet narcissists. Closet narcissists are not narcissists that look like themselves. We hide it really well, see. So they could have been that. Toxic narcissism is the kind of narcissism you often see with serial killers and people that really have no compassion anybody else at all. You can inherit whatever you got. I know in my own family, my dad was emotionally suppressed. Had a bad temper that came out of that because he was emotionally suppressed. So he'd let things build up and then explode, and these explosions would look like they would come from nowhere, right? You would also see him be a very good person, and while he was doing that to the family, he was loving animals. He'd take in anything. He would love it. He would care for it. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that an interesting thing? That is certainly, while you go, wow, what was that about? It's actually in keeping with this, right? Because he was harshest to himself. He wouldn't let his softer, gentle side come out, afraid of it being hurt. But those animals were safe. He found out at the end of his life, with Alzheimer's, by the way, or with some sort of dementia, that he was safe. Isn't that nice? And I really did find a wonderful dad in that. We hear the news always say, the tragedy of Alzheimer's, the tragedy of this, the tragedy of that. I think there is a true gift in everything. And I found that true with my father. I'm very grateful for that. We must be, if you are going to be authentic, you're going to have to find self-reflection. And do you remember that study that I've referred to before about, I don't remember what university did this, but there was a test where they had a lot of random people come in and sit in a room, and there was absolutely nothing in the room. And they had you sit in a chair, and you had to sit there for 15 minutes. And you had a button, and they were told that if they pressed the button, it would shock them. But this exercise was about just sitting in there and being alone with your thoughts. And it was a really interesting study because most people push that button instead of being alone with their thoughts. And more men push the button than women. Just telling you what the study was about. I think it's important to be able to sit there and be alone with yourself, with your thoughts, and let it be all right. Why isn't it all right? It is, dears. Everything is all right. I want to stop there. I have 6 more minutes left to go, but there's so much more to get to. I hope you've enjoyed this show. I do want to say that you can do me a great favor by getting these shows around on social media, just telling people that we're here. I appreciate your sharing and following and friending and liking us very much. Again, this show is called Real Talk with Martha Novak. We're here every Sunday at 10 o'clock in the morning. Just trying to help. Okay. So if you all will tell people about this, we should appreciate it, or send it around on social media to your people saying, we're here. She might have something to say once in a while. Anyway, let's do a prayer and try to let some of this go and see what God is telling you about what you do first. Guys, my job is to dispense information, and something in this that we're talking about is something for you to work on this week and to try to bring it forth in all your interactions with people, you see. That's your job out of this. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are, and all everything is in this world, we thank you so much. We thank you for being together. We thank you that everyone is seeking something here. We thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about things and think about things we've not thought about before or allowed ourselves time to do. We now open ourselves to information that you have for us that's personal to us and to our journey, the next step or two or three to take for us. We ask for awareness and for courage, that we may see and move on these things in a grateful and loving heart. We ask, dear God, to be of service to ourselves and to the world through our talents, gifts, and abilities. And we ask now to know more, to not be so hard on ourselves, but to forgive ourselves and accept the whole of our lives, where we came from, and this moment and where we're going to. We thank you for it all. It's a sacred journey, and it's ours. And we are indeed grateful. So now we say this prayer, knowing that these things are so in your name. In the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends. And in the name of each and every person listening to the show. We thank you, dear God. And so it is. So guys, we'll take up where we left off next week. I found some good articles on this, and I think I'll go into them next week with me thrown in, like we do. And thank you so much for listening. Well, thank you, Francisco. I'm so glad. Wave back to you. You are wonderful listeners, and it means the world to me. So I send you my good wishes for the week. All right? Take care of yourselves now, and I'll see you next Sunday at 10. Bye-bye.